Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Flavor and Fiction. So before I get started today, I just wanted to show off my lovely bouquet that my 18-month-old, 19-month-old niece gave me for Mother's Day. Thank you, Vivi. I love them. Just reminded myself to take a Claritin. Okay, so today's book. The category is a book that is becoming a movie in 2020. And thankfully, it's a Netflix movie because otherwise I wouldn't be able to go see it right now. But I chose The Willoughbys by Lois, Lowry. And it's short and I would say sweet, but not so much. To me, it's a little reminiscent of Lemony Snicket, if you've read that. This is a family, 2 parents and 4 children. The parents detest their own children and the children detest their parents right back. You have Tim, who I think is 12. Then you have the twins, Barnaby A and Barnaby B, which have just been shortened to A and B. And then there's Jane, the sister, who wants to be assertive, but is just very timid and hates that her name is only 1 syllable because she thinks power comes from having a name with at least 3 syllables. I don't know. So in this, the kids decide that they can't stand their parents. They think their mother is a horrible cook. Their dad ignores them unless they happen to get in his way. And the parents are just annoyed at having to take care of these children, and they treat them like stray cats. Now, I know it sounds a little harsh, but the book is actually humorous as well. Just like Lemony Snicket, where it's dealing with harsh events, but in a humorous way. So that I kind of liked. So the parents make a plan. They decide, you know what, let's go away on vacation and sell the house while we're gone. And that way, when we come back, we'll never have to see them again. And at the same time, the kids are making a plan. You know what? How do people become orphans? I'd like to become an orphan. And so they decide, let's send our parents, let's get them to go away on vacation and on a cruise, because people get lost on cruises. They get lost at sea and, they're having all these daydreams of losing each other. So before the kids can put their plan into action, the parents put theirs into action. And they they audition all these nannies that end up to be terrible. And then the last nanny, they don't even interview her. She comes in, they're like, you're hired, and they take their suitcases and they're out. So the kids are left to deal with this nanny. And then they realize that the house has been put up for sale, and they have all these plans of deterring people who come to look at the house. It's crazy. And in the midst of all this, before the parents leave, someone has left a baby on the Willoughbys' doorstep. The kids find it, and they're trying to decide what to do with it. They go and show their mother, and their mother's like, oh, it's hideous. Go put it somewhere. Get rid of it. Throw it outside. So they go put it on the doorstep of this widower and decide, maybe someone will take care of it. That this man, he's a rich old widower. The house is all decrepit, but he has enough money to take care of this baby. I'm telling you, this book was, the premise, I know it sounds crazy, but I'm not going to give away too much because it's a short book, but a lot happens. And the main thing is to see how their lives intertwine. But before we get more into that, I know you're wondering, well, what are you going to make today? Well, one of the meals, because I told you the kids hate their mom's cooking. They think she's terrible. And one of the dishes that she makes that they hate the most is stuffed cabbage. So I decided that I'm going to do a stuffed cabbage casserole. And I actually made it the other night. It came out good. I say that about just about everything I make on here. I mean, I'm not some like whiz in the kitchen or anything, but I think this came out pretty good. And I gave half of it to my sister and I still had plenty left. So like it makes a lot. So I'm going to show you at the end of this, the recipe, just so you have it. And I also put it in the description below. So back to the book. While the kids are getting to know their nanny and they're starting to even take to her because number one, she's a great cook. They reluctantly start to like her. And she's not some warm and fuzzy nanny. She's no Mary Poppins, but she is a reasonable person, which is all they've ever wanted after the parents that they've had. So when it comes to the widower with the baby, when he discovered her, the baby entered his life at a really poignant time. So it turns out that he had been married with a son before, but his wife and son, I think who at the time was 6, they went on a vacation in the Swiss Alps. They got trapped on a train that got caught in an avalanche. And he used to get letters from the rescue team saying, oh, we've dug 3 feet today, but still no sign of them. And we dug a couple inches today, but still no sign of them. And oh, it snowed again and all this. And that went on for 2 years. And then for 4 more years, the letters kept coming, but he kept shoving them aside because it was too heartbreaking for him to keep hearing about this news. So he just considered them dead. That at this point, after all this time, if they haven't gotten to them, they're dead. So he was depressed. He let his house go into disarray. And in fact, there was even a quote in there that talked about how when someone has a messy house, it's not because they're just a slob, that usually it's because of depression. And I thought like this book had some really, heavy topics in it, but it kept it light. It managed to still keep it light. So when he found this baby and took it in, he decided, okay, well, maybe this is the gift and I need to get it together. Like he went to go change his diaper and there was no clean surface to put the baby on. So it forced him to clean up, forced him to tap back into life and not just lay around depressed. So the baby kind of saved his life. And then the book takes you to the viewpoint of his estranged, lost wife and son. And I won't give any more away about where they were and how they were doing. Just that his son was wondering, like, what happened to my father? I have these memories of this man who actually cared about me, and things take off from there. So I don't know what age group this book was for. Hold on, I'm going to look this up. So I just looked it up and the book is classified as a children's middle grade book. And that makes sense. Because like I said, the topics would be a bit too much for like a children's book. And then some things may seem a bit too juvenile for kids in high school or adults. But I still enjoyed it. And I'm going to watch the movie. It's an animated movie because, I mean, half the stuff they talk about would be too ridiculous to try with a live action cast. But I think it's going to be a cute movie. And I mean, hey, I'm in quarantine, so I have plenty of time to check it out. So that being said, I'm going to take you now to the recipe for the stuffed cabbage casserole. So as you can see, it turned out good. It looks good. It tastes good. It was easy to make. It's a 1-pot meal, so less cleanup. And it's something that I would definitely do again. And I already had the cabbage. I had ground beef, but I decided to go out and get the ground turkey that they used in the episode. But you can do this with ground beef as well. And the recipe called for diced tomatoes, but I feel like I've been having too much tomato sauce and tomato products since I've been at home. So I left out the tomatoes and I just added in some red peppers. Tastes good to me. But this is something that it's so easy to add whatever ingredients you want in here. Celery, carrots would have been good in this too. So just play with it and make it your own. So I happened to find that quote that I was talking about, and it's this: squalor has nothing to do with money. Squalor happens when people are sad. And the book had a lot of declarative statements like this that, just made you stop and think. So here is another quote that I found that leaped out at me. Once she read a book but found it distasteful because it contained adjectives. And I don't know, it had a lot of hidden gems in it like that. That made it fun to read despite whatever the topic was. So I do recommend this book. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars if I had to rate it. I look forward to seeing the movie on Netflix. It has characters voiced by Maya Rudolph, Alessia Cara, Terry Crews, Ricky Gervais, Martin Short, and more. So it sounds like a fun movie. So check out the book, check out the movie. I'll put a link to the book below as well as the recipe. And thank you again for joining me for another episode of Flavor and Fiction.